It was a calm, sunlit August morning. A single dad walked into a luxury car show, dressed too simply for the room. At first, just a few glances. Then came the smirks. Within seconds, laughter spread across the floor. He didn't belong here, that's what they thought. Even the CEO noticed, her eyes cold, judgment instant. No one asked why he was there. No one cared. But something about him didn't match their assumptions. And minutes later, everything changed. The laughter stopped. The room went silent. Because the man they mocked wasn't just anyone, and the CEO realized too late. To understand why the laughter stopped, you have to go back 6 hours, before the sun was fully up over Salinas, California. The kitchen at the Aldridge house was lit at 5:45 in the morning. Beckett Aldridge brewed coffee in an old steel pot, the water dripping in a slow, steady rhythm. On the table, his daughter Iris, 8 years old, arranged colored pencils by hardness in a wooden box, from HB to 9B, exactly the way he had taught her at age 3. Today was her day. He had promised her 3 months ago. A former client, a man whose 1969 Mustang Beck had once helped restore from the frame-up, had given him 2 tickets to the Pebble Beach Showcase, the satellite event of the Concours d'Elegance dedicated to owner-built restorations. Iris had been drawing cars since she was 4. She knew the names of engine parts before she knew her multiplication tables. To her, this was Disneyland and a museum stitched together. At 7:30, the two of them climbed into the 2003 Ford F-250. Faded blue paint, worn pale on the hood. A dent on the passenger door from 2021, when he had clipped a lamppost in the hospital parking lot the day Lena died. He had never repaired it. Some dents, you keep on purpose. At 10 in the morning, they arrived at the Pebble Beach gate. The main lot was full of Bentleys, Aston Martins, new generation Porsches. Beck drove past it and parked in the south lot, 200 meters from the main green. Iris didn't complain. She held his hand and counted her steps. 10:42. They reached the central display. A Bugatti Type 57 sat on a low platform with no rope, no attendant, only a small sign that read "Please do not touch." Beck stopped at a safe distance. Iris stopped breathing. He knelt beside the engine, not to touch it, but to listen. Old V12s give off a faint hum when sunlight expands the metal, like the soft tone of a slack instrument string. His ears had been trained for 20 years to hear that sound. Tate Kestrel, 45, navy blazer, a Patek Philippe peeking from his cuff, strode across the floor with a wireless microphone. He was the chairman of the judging panel. He saw Beck. He saw the faded gray flannel. He saw the oil-stained hands. He saw the dented F-250 through the glass wall behind them. He smiled. Then he raised the microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen, someone seems to think a $40 admission gives them permission to fondle $1,000,000 artifacts." Laughter rose. A woman in pearls lifted her phone and took a picture of Beck's truck through the glass, giggling to her husband. Iris ducked her head, her small fist tightening around her father's shirt. Beck did not look up. He withdrew his hand from the air beside the engine, stood slowly, placed a hand on his daughter's shoulder, and turned away. 10 meters away, beside the operations tent, Quinn Verrain, 36, the CEO of Verrain Motor Heritage and the host of the entire event, stood frozen. She did not laugh with Tate. She did not speak. But her eyes dropped to Beck's right hand, to a small V-shaped scar on the knuckle of his thumb, the scar of a metalworker. And she remembered. 11:15. Beck led Iris to the picnic area east of the main green, where oak trees gave shade and long wooden tables sat in rows. He bought 2 hot dogs, an orange juice, a bottle of water. Iris sat down, opened her sketchbook, and began drawing the Bugatti from memory. The rear wheels in her sketch were smaller than the front. Beck did not correct it. She would catch it herself when she looked back. Iris looked up. "Daddy, did you do something wrong?" Beck knelt to her eye level. "No, sweetheart, I was just listening to see if that V12 had a piston stroke imbalance." "It does, but it's not my problem to fix." Iris nodded gravely, as if accepting a technical lesson, and went back to her sketch. 11:32. Quinn appeared at the edge of the picnic area. No assistant with her, which was unusual for a CEO mid-event. She wore a charcoal blazer, her brown hair cut to her shoulders, no jewelry except a thin steel watch. She walked to Beck's table. "Min if you sit." Beck nodded. He pushed the bottle of water toward her, a mechanic's reflex from sharing long shift breaks. Quinn sat. She watched Iris draw. She handles proportion well. Wheel perspective is hard for adults. Iris, without looking up, said, "Daddy says draw the cylinder head first. Because that decides everything." Quinn paused. She set her coffee down, slowly. "Cylinder head decides everything. That's a Walter Aldridge line. 89, lecture at Penn State. I read it in a graduate thesis." Beck looked at his hand for a moment, then at Quinn. "That was my father." Quinn already knew. The exchange was a confirmation, not a discovery. She pulled out her phone, opened a close-up image, and turned the screen toward him. The rear of a 1937 Packard engine block, lit at a 45-degree angle, 3 small hand-cut marks were visible. The letter B. The letter A. A triangle. She placed the phone on the table between them. "My father bought this car in 2019 for $2.4 million. He told me the man who made this mark was the only person in North America who could dynamically balance a V12 within 1/1000th of a gram. He said if I ever met him, don't let him walk away." Beck looked at the photo for a long time. He did not pick up the phone. Iris stopped drawing, glanced between them, then returned to her sketchbook because she understood this wasn't her conversation. Finally Beck spoke. "I've been out of the industry 4 years, Miss Varane. I raise my daughter. I fix Hondas." Quinn did not argue. She said, in a flat voice, "Tate Kestrel doesn't know who you are." A neutral sentence with weight. Beck understood. She was offering him a choice, not a favor. "I didn't come here to prove anything," he said. "I came because my daughter likes cars." Quinn nodded once. She stood. She placed a business card on the table. Name, title, personal cell number, no switchboard. Then she walked away. Iris looked at the card. "Who was that, Daddy?" Beck picked it up. "Someone who knew your grandfather." He turned the card over once, then put it in his shirt pocket without another word. 50 meters away, inside the authentication tent, Odessa Brand, 62, the head of metallurgy authentication for Varane Motor Heritage, watched Quinn return. She whispered to herself, "She's figured it out." Then she opened her phone and pulled up the file of the non-disclosure agreement Tate Kestrel had forced her to sign in 2018, her finger trembled slightly on the screen. Saturday morning. 7:30. Beck returned to Pebble Beach because Iris wanted to enter the children's drawing contest, which opened at 8. He parked in the south lot, closer to the entrance this time because they were early. Quinn found Beck at the children's registration desk. A different outfit today, a gray wool cardigan instead of the blazer, dark jeans, low sneakers. The off-duty version. She waited until Iris had finished writing her name on the form. Then she touched Beck's elbow lightly, a signal to come with me. They walked together to the back of the authentication tent, away from guests. Quinn spoke briefly. "I'm not asking you to compete. I'm asking you to sit at the metallurgy authentication table today, as an unannounced consultant. Odessa Brand runs that table. She knew your father." Beck looked back at Iris, queuing with 4 other children, pencil ready in her hand. He said, "No. I don't want my daughter to see me in a position where Kestrel can mock me again." Quinn did not push. "Tate humiliated you in front of 200 people. If you don't sit at that table, he will do the same thing to someone else for the next 6 years. You have the right to say no. But I had to tell you that." Beck was silent. He looked at Iris laughing with another little girl about something in their sketchbooks. He thought of Lena, who had once told him not to let fear define how he raised his daughter. He said, "I'll sit. But my name isn't on any paper." Quinn nodded. She led him around to the back of the tent. The first time the two of them had walked side by side. Quinn was 5 to 7. Beck was 6 feet, the space between their shoulders was about a hand's width. Neither touched the other. But their pace matched, strangely, well. Inside the tent, Odessa Brand turned from her workbench. She saw Beck. She steadied herself with one hand on the edge of the table. She drew a long breath. "Walter Aldridge's boy," she said. "I've been waiting for this almost 30 years. She hugged him, short and tight. Beck was surprised, but he nodded. Odessa stepped back, wiped the corner of her eye with the back of her hand, then turned to Quinn with the professional voice she had used for decades. "Which file first?" Quinn placed a folder on the table. A 1934 Duesenberg Model J, nominated for the Master Restoration Award the next day. Restored by the Kestrel Vance Workshop. The documentation cited a BA triangle authentication mark on the rear of the block. Beck opened the folder. He studied the photograph of the engine block for a long time. 1 minute. 2. Iris was drawing in the corner of the tent, undisturbed. Finally Beck spoke. "This isn't my mark. The spacing between the second and third line is off by 3/10 of a mil. I never drift more than 5/100ths. And the first line has a small notch at the start, like the knife slipped on the initial cut. I never let the knife slip." Quinn looked at Odessa. Odessa looked down. She did not speak. She could not speak. Beck understood. Odessa had known for years. But the non-disclosure agreement, the 18-year pension, the entire shape of her life held her in place. She could lead Quinn close to the truth. She could not be the one to declare it. Iris ran into the tent, sketchbook in hand. The Bugatti drawing again, with the wheels in correct proportion this time. Quinn knelt to look. She praised it honestly. She asked Iris about her color choices. Beck watched. For the first time in 3 years, he saw a stranger looking at his daughter as a real artist, not as a child to be pitied for being motherless. Saturday afternoon. 2 o'clock. Quinn arranged to have Kestrel's contested Duesenberg moved to the private authentication area behind the main tent, under the cover of a routine prejudging inspection. Tate objected by phone, but Quinn was the event CEO. He could not refuse without raising suspicion. Beck brought tools from his garage. A field magnifier set. A small UV penlight no longer than his finger. An old digital caliper. Iris sat in the corner of the tent with her sketchbook, supervised by Odessa, who taught her to distinguish high-carbon steel from alloy steel by the color of oxidation. Iris took notes seriously. Beck explained to Quinn how to read the genuine BA triangle mark. Each line is cut with a Wessler 4/10 of a mil knife at a 17-degree angle. Under natural sunlight at 45 degrees, the 3 lines cast 3 parallel shadows of equal length within 5% tolerance. Forged marks usually use laser tools or machine engravers. The shadows won't be even. Hard to see by the naked eye. But under a 50-power loop, it's obvious. They carried the engine block outside, set it on a wooden table in the afternoon sun. Beck raised the loop. The shadow of the third line was visibly shorter than the other 2. He moved the loop a 1/4 inch to the left, then back. Same result. He handed the loop to Quinn without a word. Quinn looked through it, silent for a few seconds, then straightened. "How many cars in the world are wearing your forged mark?" Beck said, "I don't know, maybe 3. Maybe 20. I haven't tracked the market since I left." There were buyers in Europe and the Gulf who would pay a premium for the mark alone. Anyone willing to forge it would have a long list of customers. Quinn fell quiet. She understood the weight of what came next. Going public meant dozens of multi-million-dollar transactions could be open to investigation. The classic car market could shake. Varane Motor Heritage could be sued for having authenticated some of the affected cars, including her own father's Packard. The stock could drop. The board could turn on her. Beck looked at her. "You don't have to do this. I'm out of the industry. Your job is to protect your father and your company." Quinn spoke slowly, one word at a time. "My father bought that car because he believed in your mark. If I let Tate keep forging it, then my father bought a lie. I can't live with that." A pause of about 5 seconds. Beck nodded once. They did not touch. But both of them knew an agreement had been made. Not in writing. Not in a handshake. Only in the silent consent of 2 people who had decided to walk through something hard together. Iris came over and handed Quinn a fresh drawing. The Duesenberg, with a small annotation showing the engine block location Odessa had pointed out. "You can have it," Iris said. "I'll draw another one for Daddy." Quinn took the drawing. For the first time in the entire event, she smiled. A real smile, not a social one. I'll keep it. Thank you, Iris. That night Beck drove Iris home to Salinas. Highway 101, the headlights sweeping the trees along the roadside. Iris said, Miss Quinn doesn't smile much, Daddy. But she listens. Beck looked at the road. Yes, sweetheart, he said. She listens. Sunday morning. 8 o'clock. Tate Kestrel discovered the Duesenberg had been moved overnight. He stormed into Quinn's operations tent. His face was red. His voice was raised. The two assistants at the front desk looked up, then quickly backed down at their screens. Quinn did not argue. She only stated that the car was in routine inspection per the internal authentication protocol, which she had the authority to invoke without prior notice. Tate threatened her. Do you know my father-in-law holds 3 seats on your board? Quinn answered without lifting her eyes from her tablet. I do. I also know the event management contract permits me to suspend any category if there is suspicion of authentication fraud. Clause 12.4. You can reread it if you like. The English is plain. Tate left the tent with forced restraint, his jaw tight. Outside, he made a call through his Bluetooth earpiece. Find out who the man with the little girl yesterday was. Right now. Name, address, workplace. Within an hour, Beck arrived at Pebble Beach at 9, without Iris. He had left her with the neighbor, Marjorie, because he didn't want her here on award day in case of conflict. He and Odessa prepared the technical documentation for the internal judges meeting at 11. While they worked, Odessa spoke privately with Beck, her voice low. Your father saved my career in '87. I almost got fired from my first shop for misauthenticating a cord. Walter testified for me at the disciplinary board, even though he didn't know me. He just told the technical truth. The board cleared me. I never thanked him in person. I sent a letter, but I don't know if it ever reached him. I owe him. She paused, looking at her hands. Tate Kestrel forced me to sign that NDA in 2018, after I questioned the Duesenberg he sold to a Middle Eastern client. He told me he had 3 names ready to take my position the next morning. I stayed silent for the pension, because I'm 62, with no husband, no children, no one to lean on but a paycheck. I'm ashamed, Beckett. Beck placed a hand lightly on her shoulder. You don't owe me anything. You led Miss Varane here. That's enough. Quinn entered the tent and caught the last sentence. She did not comment. She set a folder down on the table. Overnight she had contacted 2 other collectors who had bought BA triangle marked cars in the past 6 years, one in Geneva. One in Dubai. Both had agreed to send high-resolution images of their engine blocks for Beck to authenticate remotely the following week. The Geneva collector had also offered to fly his car to California at his own expense if needed. As the 3 of them worked side by side, sorting photographs and measurement charts, Quinn's hand brushed Beck's as they both reached for the same image. A half-second pause. Neither of them pulled back sharply. They separated naturally. Neither looked at the other. Odessa saw it. She said nothing. She bent back to her work, the corner of her mouth lifting just slightly. 10:47 in the morning. Quinn's assistant ran into the tent, pale-faced. Miss Varane, she said. There's a problem in the south lot. Mr. Aldridge's truck. Someone's removed all 4 tires. Beck and Quinn walked to the south lot. The F-250 sat on 4 pine blocks. A yellow envelope was wedged under the windshield wiper. Beck stepped forward and opened it. Inside was an A4-color photograph. Iris in the schoolyard at Cesar Chavez Elementary in Salinas, taken from a distance through a chain-link fence, perhaps 2 weeks earlier. The focus was sharp. You could count the buttons on her shirt. Below the photograph, in bold print, were the words "Be back in Salinas by noon." Quinn looked at the photograph. Her face did not change. But her grip on the tablet whitened her fingers. She pulled out her phone and dialed. Marcus, I need 2 Tier 1 security personnel at Cesar Chavez Elementary in Salinas within 40 minutes. Pick up Iris Aldridge, 3rd grade. Take her to an address I'll send. Local police notified. Now. She hung up and turned to Beck. You don't have to leave. They'll be there in 40 minutes. Marcus is former Secret Service. I've done this for Varane VIPs. 2 men will stay at your garage until this is over. Beck looked at Quinn. He was not used to anyone else protecting his child. He had done it alone for 4 years. But he saw no pity in her eyes, only the control of someone who had done this many times. He nodded once. 11 o'clock. The internal judge's meeting room on the 2nd floor of the central event building. 7 members around a long wooden table. Tate Kestrel at the head, his navy blazer immaculate, the Patek Philippe visible. Quinn at the foot, opposite him. Beck and Odessa seated against the wall, not at the table. Quinn opened the meeting. I'm requesting we hear evidence of authentication forgery on the Duesenberg nominated for master restoration. Tate scoffed. An anonymous mechanic and an NDA-bound employee. What kind of joke is this, Varane? The door opened. A man stepped in. 52, plain white shirt, no tie, a silver laptop in his hand. Hollis Vance. Tate's former partner. Co-owner of the Kestrel Vance workshop since 2016. Tate went pale. Hollis. What are you doing here? Hollis set the laptop on the table. He did not look at Tate. He looked at Beck. Miss Varane emailed me at 4 this morning. I came for one reason. In 2014, I was an apprentice at Halverson Aldrich. Beckett Aldrich fired me for trying to forge a BA triangle mark on an Auburn, to inflate the sale by $30,000. He didn't sue me. He fired me and made me sign a pledge, never touch a Wessler knife again. He said if I kept the pledge, he wouldn't destroy my name. Hollis opened the laptop. In 2018, Tate Kestrel hired me. He knew my history. He told me if I didn't cooperate, he'd expose the Auburn matter and I'd never work in restoration again. I forged marks for him on 3 cars. The Duesenberg for the Dubai client in 2018. A cord for Florida in 2019, a Stutz for Mr. Kestrel's own collection in 2021. He turned the laptop toward the panel. All CAD files, wire transfers, request messages, are on this drive. I've lived with this for 8 years. I can't anymore. The room was silent. Hollis looked at Beck. Beckett, I'm not asking forgiveness. I came to return what you once gave me. The truth. Tate stood to leave. 2 security officers waiting outside blocked the door. Quinn addressed the panel, her voice flat. I move to suspend Mr. Kestrel's judging credentials immediately, vacate the Duesenberg Award, and forward this file to Varane Legal for FBI referral. Any objections? Not one hand rose. Beck said nothing through the entire scene. When the panel adjourned, he stood, walked to Hollis, and shook his hand. No embrace. No words. Just a handshake. Quinn watched from across the room. 12:30 in the afternoon. Quinn received a message from Marcus. Iris had been escorted from school to the Aldrich garage safely. She handed the phone to Beck. He heard his daughter's voice through the speaker. Daddy, 2 tall men came to school. They said Miss Quinn sent them. I'm drawing at the garage. Mrs. Marjorie is making sandwiches. Beck closed his eyes for a moment. Thank you, he said to Quinn. Quinn did not respond immediately. She nodded once and turned away to keep working, because if she stayed still she would not hold her expression. 1:15. The Varane Motor Heritage Board met in emergency session by video, 7 members on the screen in the operations room. Reginald Holloway, Tate's father-in-law, was one of the 7. Quinn presented the evidence in 20 minutes. No emotion. Only data. Reginald requested a delay for further review. Quinn answered. We have 200 guests on the green. We have 3 major journalists from Haggerty, Road and Track, and the New York Times Culture Desk. If we delay, we are complicit. That complicity will be recorded in today's minutes. I sent the draft minutes to each of you by email at 1 o'clock. The vote went 6 in favor, 1 against. Reginald, recorded with conflict of interest notation. 2 o'clock. The Pebble Beach Showcase Award stage. 200 guests in folding chairs under the white canopy. 3 television cameras. Quinn stepped to the microphone. She did not read the script she had prepared at 4 in the morning. She folded it, slipped it into her pocket, and spoke directly. Today, We have an unusual announcement. The Master Restoration Award will not be given this year. The reason is that the nominated vehicle, a 1934 Duesenberg Model J, bears a forged authentication mark. That mark was created by a person who has no right to create it. The only person with the right to place the BA triangle mark is Mr. Beckett Aldrich, who is in this audience right now. The crowd turned. Beck stood in the back row, gray flannel, his hands at his sides, no microphone, no platform. Quinn continued. Yesterday morning, Mr. Aldrich was publicly insulted on this lawn by a member of our judging panel. I witnessed it. I did not intervene in time. That was my failure. Today, he is the only person who can tell us how many cars in the world are wearing a lie. Mr. Aldrich has agreed to lead that reauthentication, without fee, because his father, Walter Aldrich, taught our generation that metal does not lie. Only people lie. Beck did not go up onto the stage. He nodded once when Quinn looked down at him, that was his entire response. Tate Kestrel was escorted from the place of honor by 2 security officers. No handcuffs. No drama. Only a quiet retreat in front of 200 pairs of eyes. The last thing he saw was his wife, in the 3rd row, stepping 1 pace away from him as he passed. She did not take his hand. After the ceremony, a reporter from Haggerty magazine approached Beck at the edge of the lawn. Beck declined an interview. He said 1 sentence. Write about Hollis Vance. He was the brave man today. Quinn found Beck in the south lot, beside the F-250, now back on its tires, repaired by the event's tech crew during the meetings. She did not thank him. Both of them knew thanks weren't needed. She only asked, "Want to head back to Salinas?" Beck answered, "Yes. Iris is waiting." The following week. Aldridge Motorworks on William Street, Salinas. 3 old service bays with dark green roll-up doors. Quinn drove in on Wednesday morning, unannounced. Dark jeans, a cream sweater, no jewelry but the steel watch. The first time Beck had seen her outside a work context. She brought a proposal. Not a contract. Just 1 page. Verrain Motor Heritage wanted to fund the Aldridge Apprentice program in Salinas. 6 trainees per year, free tuition, prioritized for Hartnell College trade students and recent veterans. Quinn committed 3 years of funding, $1.2 million. No name rights, no IP conditions. Beck would serve as technical director, salaried by the nonprofit. No one would own equity. Beck read the proposal twice. He didn't answer right away. He walked Quinn through the garage. 3 bays, the middle one holding a '69 Camaro mid-teardown. Tools racked by size on the back wall, every wrench in its outline. A drafting corner in the office, where Iris sat on a tall stool, head down. "Hi, Miss Quinn." Quinn knelt beside the drafting table. Iris was drawing a vate with the camshaft labeled in the wrong position. Quinn did not correct it. She only asked, "Want me to draw a camshaft explanation for you?" Iris nodded. Quinn took a ballpoint pen and drew on a separate sheet beside Iris's sketchbook. Slowly. Explaining each line. She did not talk to her like a child. She talked to her like an apprentice draftsman. Iris listened to every word, occasionally tapping the corner of her pencil against the page, the way her father did when thinking. Beck watched from the bay door. He thought of Lena. Lena had once sat on that same tall stool, teaching Iris to arrange crayons when she was 4. He did not feel sad. Only a quiet acknowledgement that life had shifted into a chapter he had not yet named. After Iris went down for an afternoon nap on the office couch, Beck and Quinn sat on the garage steps. Black coffee, 2 cups. Beck spoke first. "I don't need a training shop to prove anything. I closed that door 4 years ago." Quinn answered, "You don't owe me a workshop. You owe yourself. Not for the recognition. But because there are 30 kids in Salinas learning a trade in garages without good teachers. You're a good teacher. That's true whether you agree or not." A pause. Beck looked down the road. Another '69 Camaro was pulling up to the curb. Customer pickup. On time. He stood and went to work. Quinn did not push. She finished her coffee, washed the cup in the small office sink. Before Quinn left, Beck said, "Give me a week to think." Quinn nodded. She walked to the white Lexus. She stopped at the door, turned back. Beck. If you say no, that's not the end. I'll still come gas up at the station near here every now and then. The line was light. Almost a joke. Beck heard the real meaning in it. Iris ran out of the house, holding a drawing. The white Lexus, sketched from her noon memory, with a careful handwritten caption beneath it. Miss Quinn came to my house. Iris, age 8. Quinn took the drawing. She tucked it into the inside pocket of her cardigan, where it would stay warm. She said nothing. Beck watched from the bay door. He understood the gesture. 10 days later, Beck agreed to the program with 2 conditions. He would select the first 6 apprentices himself, with no committee. And Iris would have her own dedicated drafting corner in the training shop, not as a guest. Quinn agreed to both within the hour, by email. Hollis Vance contacted Beck by handwritten letter from Reno, Nevada. He asked to join the program as an unpaid volunteer mechanic, doing only machinery maintenance, never touching engraving tools. Beck thought about it for 2 days. He called Hollis. They spoke for 12 minutes. Beck agreed. You won't touch a Wessler knife, Beck said. But you can teach those kids how to maintain a lathe. You're good at that. And you live in Salinas. No commute. The kids need to see adults who stay. Hollis answered, his voice catching. Thank you, Beckett. The Tate-Kestrel matter accelerated. Haggerty magazine published an 8-page investigation, the cover image a photograph of Beck's hand holding a Wessler knife beside an anonymous hand holding a laser engraver. The piece quoted 3 former apprentices of the Halverson Aldridge shop, all of whom described the same training discipline. Every cut was made under daylight, every mark inspected at 3 angles before the engine left the bench. The FBI opened a preliminary investigation into 14 suspect BA triangle cars on the market. Tate was removed from every major North American judging panel within 3 weeks. His wife filed for divorce in late October. No press statement. Quinn was sued internally by Reginald Holloway on a charge of overreach. The second board vote came down 5 to keep Quinn, 2 against. Reginald voluntarily stepped down 2 weeks later. The 2 seats his family controlled were restructured to require independent review every 12 months. Beck and Quinn met weekly to plan the workshop. Always at the Aldridge garage. Never at the Varane office in San Francisco. They had lunch together. Sandwiches from the Mexican shop on the corner, the one with the hand-painted sign and the radio always tuned to the same Spanish station. No champagne. No cloth napkins. Iris was always there, drawing at a nearby table, occasionally interrupting to ask Quinn how to spell a word she had decided was important enough to caption in pen. Quinn always answered without looking up from the budget spreadsheet, and Iris always wrote the word down exactly as Quinn spelled it. One late September afternoon. Beck was installing an old lathe in the new training bay, his sleeves pushed up to the elbows, hands streaked with grease. Quinn sat on the steps, watching, a coffee cup in her hand. She had brought a rolled paper. Not a technical drawing. A pencil sketch. She unrolled it. The 1937 Packard, drawn in charcoal pencil, signed Henrik Varane in the lower corner. Below the signature was a slanted handwritten line. For the man who placed the real mark. H.V., June 2019, 1 month before he died. She handed the drawing to Beck. My father meant to send this to you in 2019, he couldn't find your address, since you'd moved after your wife passed. This drawing sat in his personal safe for 8 years. Beck took the drawing. He did not speak for a long time. He pinned it to the tool board in the work bay, next to Iris's Bugatti drawing from the Pebble Beach day. 2 drawings side by side. One in charcoal by an old man now gone. One in colored pencil by an 8-year-old. Quinn said nothing more. She looked at the 2 drawings for a while. Then, 3 more workbenches. By October, I already ordered them. Beck nodded. He did not say thank you. She did not need it. October. A Saturday morning. The Aldridge Apprentice program officially opened in the new training bay. 6 first cohort apprentices stood around the first workbench. 4 men, 2 women. Ages 18 to 26. 3 were veterans. 2 were Hartnell College graduates. 1 was a high school dropout. Beck did not give an opening speech. He said only this. Today we tear down an engine. Tomorrow we put it back together. If it fires on the right rhythm, we did good work. If it doesn't, we try again until it does. The 6 apprentices nodded. None of them said anything. Beck handed each of them a clean shop rag and a numbered tool tray. The work began. Quinn stood at the bay edge, a paper cup of coffee in her hand. No stage. No ribbon. No press photo. Just present. Hollis Vance stood by the lathe in the back corner, doing a final oil check, not looking up. He had moved into a small rental 2 blocks from the garage. He walked to work every morning. Iris led 3 of the apprentices over to her drafting corner, explaining how to arrange technical pencils by hardness. One of them, Riley, 24, a former army medic with 3 tours in Afghanistan, knelt down to listen seriously. Iris did not know Riley had been a medic. Iris only saw someone who cared about pencils. Late afternoon, after everyone had gone home, Beck and Quinn sat on the garage steps. The same steps from Quinn's first visit, 10 days after Pebble Beach. Iris sat between them, drawing. Beck spoke without looking at Quinn. Lena, my wife, once told me that if I ever return to the big work, don't return because I'm afraid of being forgotten. Return because someone needs what I know. He paused. You gave me that reason. Quinn did not answer right away. She looked at Iris' drawing. The sketch was 3 people on a stoop. Proportions imperfect but clearly identifiable. The father in flannel. Miss Quinn in a cardigan. Iris in the middle, holding a pencil. Quinn said, my father used to say metal doesn't lie, only people lie. I think he forgot one thing. Sometimes people don't lie either. They just wait until someone shows up who's worth telling the truth to. A long pause. Iris looked up. Miss Quinn, are you staying for dinner? Quinn looked at Beck. Beck nodded. Quinn said, yes. Thank you, Iris. Iris went back to her drawing, satisfied with the answer. She added a small detail to the sketch on her lap, a coffee cup beside the cardigan figure, then a wrench beside the flannel one. Her tongue pressed against the corner of her mouth as she worked, the way it always did when a drawing felt important. The afternoon faded on William Street. 3 people still sat on the garage steps. Quinn held Iris's drawing in her hand. Beck looked down the street, at the old F-250 parked beside Quinn's white Lexus. 2 completely different vehicles, parked a hand's width apart. The light caught the dent on the truck's passenger door, the one he had never repaired, and for the first time in 4 years it did not look like a wound. It looked like a date marker. Something that had happened. And something that was now behind him. 5 years later, when a New York Times reporter asked Quinn Verrain which moment had made her realize everything had changed, she did not name the Pebble Beach stage. She did not name the board vote. She named one August morning, when a man knelt beside the engine of a Bugatti, and she realized he wasn't looking at the metal. He was listening to it. And she was, too. She wasn't looking at the engine. She was looking at him.